Hi, I'm Michelle the Irritable Vegan and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. So if you're new around here, thanks so much for spending your time with us, but you may not be aware that this isn't typically how we would begin a recipe video. For those of you that have been here a while, thanks so much for sticking with me during my absence, and I really hope that the unveiling of the new setting is going to go a little way towards making up for that. Fingers crossed that in the future having this dedicated space is going to mean that I can be a bit more consistent with my uploads and get a little bit more creative with my recipe videos. And speaking of those recipes, I've got 3 delicious ideas for you today that are absolutely perfect for us here in the UK and the Northern Hemisphere in what should be picnic and afternoon tea weather, if the sun ever decides to show its face. But other than that, these recipes are delicious, they're light, they're delicate, they're summery, and they're absolutely perfect for spreading out a blanket in the garden and sharing with a friend. I really hope you enjoy the recipes just as much as I enjoyed shooting them for you here in our new little studio. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. That way you can say that you were here from the beginning and you watched us learn, develop and grow here in our new little home for our vegan, low FODMAP recipe videos. Now let's get into the recipes. Kicking off with the afternoon tea vibe, we've got a classic cucumber and cress sandwich with a vegan cream cheese. If that's not your thing, then for something that feels a bit more high tea, we've got a flavourful smoked carrot with sour cream and chives. And finally, a rich and creamy chickpea and black grape salad. You may not be aware that low FODMAP sandwich fillings can be a bit trickier on a plant-based diet. This is because the majority of the protein-based fillings, such as beans, chickpeas, nuts and seeds, contain the same types of FODMAPs as the bread, crackers or crisp bread that you'd typically serve them on, which can lead to FODMAP stacking. Make sure you watch the whole video to hear my tips, tricks and swaps for how to avoid this. Each of these recipes serves 2 portions, and you'll find detailed FODMAP breakdowns of all these recipes in the link to the accompanying blog post down below. We'll start with the cream cheese, as this needs to thicken up overnight in the fridge. Instead of a typical vegan cheese that uses nuts, we're using firm tofu for the base as a way to add some protein without excess FODMAPs. You'll need 100 grams of firm, well-pressed tofu. I use the Cauldron brand. Add to this 60 grams of coconut yogurt, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, half a vegetable stock cube using a gluten-free or a low FODMAP brand if required. And don't worry about the waste here, because we'll use the other half of this later in another recipe. 1/4 teaspoon of white miso paste and an optional half to 1 tablespoon of almond milk to loosen it up into a smooth paste in the blender. If your blender's halfway decent, you may not need the extra milk at all, so only add it if your blender's struggling. My trusty little blender always needs a helping hand, especially with small quantities, so I'll often actually double a recipe and that usually helps it to blend easier. Blitz everything up into a thick, smooth sauce, and at this stage it'll be the pourable consistency of mayo or double cream. Allow this to sit in the fridge overnight, and when you come to use it the next day, it should have firmed up nicely into a thick, luscious spread similar to a soft cheese. So for our finger sandwiches, we'll use our cream cheese, some thinly sliced cucumber which is FODMAP free and can be eaten freely, and I like to top it off with some mustard cress, but it's not listed in the Monash app, so you may want to skip this if you're still in elimination phase. This classic afternoon tea staple typically needs the cucumber to be sliced as thinly as possible. You'll need a really sharp knife and a steady hand, or alternatively try using a mandolin slicer on the thinnest blade. And for afternoon tea, cucumber sandwiches often contain only cucumber on buttered bread. So if you're looking to keep this fresh and extra easy, feel free to forgo the cheese spread entirely. I'm serving mine on a sliced wheat sourdough, which is generically listed as FODMAP safe for 2 slices. I'm using a seeded version, but a plain wheat would be a safer bet for the elimination phase. This one's available in the co-op for £1.65, and it states that it uses a sourdough culture and an 18-hour slow rise. Of course, you can always substitute this with a FODMAP safe gluten-free bread, and you'll find a large variety of different brands and types listed in the Monash app. Most of them are fructan containing and safe at 2 slices. And these slices are huge, so I'll be cutting 1 slice in half to give me the equivalent of 2 regular sized slices. And traditionally, finger sandwiches have the crusts removed. I'm not into that, and for me the crusts of a sourdough loaf are actually my favourite part. If you want a more authentic feel, then feel free to remove them, but remember to blitz them up into breadcrumbs and freeze them to avoid any unnecessary waste. Now I like to use a cheesy spread straight onto the bread in place of butter. You can afford to be really generous here, as this whole batch of tofu cheese is practically FODMAP free. In the interest of portion sizes, I reckon you'd get 2 generous or 3 average portions from one batch. I prefer to cut mine to size before the cucumber slices go on. I think it's easier to cut and looks nicer that way, especially if you decide to serve it open-faced. And I'm topping mine with the optional mustard cress, which I proudly grew from seed. I realise that every primary school age child has done this at some point, but it's the first edible crop I can ever remember growing from seed, and I'm super proud of it. Not to mention, it packs a delicious peppery punch. If you're still in your elimination phase, then feel free to leave this out, as it's not listed in the Monash app. But FYI, mustard seeds do have a safe serving of 1 teaspoon with no excess FODMAPs listed. I've no idea if the seeds I used for this are the same thing, so you do you. And I'm going to put a lid on it and cut it into classic afternoon tea fingers, but stick around to see how much prettier it looks left open-faced. Now let's get cracking on the smoked carrot lox. Chop and peel 2 medium carrots. The exact quantities don't matter too much, as carrot can be eaten freely, but to give you a rough idea of portions, I ended up with 100 grams. Using a vegetable peeler or mandolin, slice your carrots as thinly as possible without taking off the ends of your fingers. I particularly like using this serrated speed peeler, as I really like the slightly ridged texture it creates in the slices, which for me makes it look a bit more authentically fishy. You can see here exactly how thin the slices should be, and to get them like this with all your fingertips intact, I recommend only slicing to the centre of each carrot. Any closer to the edge than this and you're really risking getting too close to the blade. And this is a classic case of do as I say, not as I do. Ouch. To add a different flavour and texture to the carrot, I'm also using 35 grams of thinly sliced pickled beetroot or beets, which are FODMAP free. These will marinate alongside the carrot, adding a richer colour and a kick of acidity to the final dish. These don't need to be as thin as the carrot, so just use a sharp knife to get a moderately thin slice. For the marinade, we need 250 ml or 1 cup of veg stock, using the other half of that stock cube from earlier. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1 scant teaspoon of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of white miso paste, and then whisk that up as best you can. To this we're going to add half a sheet of dried nori, and don't do what I'm doing here and break it up. Leave the sheet whole. You'll still get the same seaweed flavour, but it'll be much easier to remove it in one piece from the marinade later on. Finally, to mine I add a generous pinch of smoked sea salt, but sub this with regular sea salt if preferred. Add the carrot ribbons and sliced beets to the marinade, making sure everything is submerged in the liquid. This then needs to go in the microwave on high for 4 minutes or simmer in a pan for 8 minutes until the carrot's slightly softened. Leave it to cool and pop it in the fridge for at least 4 hours. I honestly left mine for 3 days. I checked it each day and there wasn't any obvious change to the texture, so feel free to make this well in advance without compromising or risking it going soggy. Here's the texture after it comes out of the microwave, and here's mine after 3 days in the fridge. The carrot is glossy and softened slightly, but still with some bite, which I honestly prefer. This has got all the flavour of a smoked salmon, but without that queasy, jelly texture, which has always grossed me out. We're going to pair our smoked carrot with a classic combination of sour cream and chives. I'm using 2 tablespoons of this Alpro plain coconut yoghurt, which is widely available here in the UK and the only one that I could get my hands on locally, but unfortunately it's not suitable for the elimination phase, as it's a soy coconut mix. There are a few pure coconut yoghurt brands available, so just make sure you stick with those if you're in elimination. Then half a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, 1 teaspoon of nooch and a pinch of salt to taste. To this we'll add a squeeze of lemon, about half a teaspoon, and this sad looking thing is the only lemon I had in the house, but it's enough for what we need. Add to that a generous sprinkle of fresh chives and parsley, and some fresh dill would be lovely here too. So next we need to strain all this lovely marinade away from the carrots and beetroot. And this is the point where I realised I should have left the nori sheet whole, because it was a real pain to fish it all out from amongst the veggies. If you're planning to reuse the marinade again, and I think that once you've tasted this then you probably will, you'll need to strain it over a bowl or container. And purely for the sake of recipe video aesthetics, I decided to rinse all the flecks of seaweed off my carrot to give it a cleaner look. I wouldn't bother with this if it was just for me, but you decide whether or not you're offended by the discoloration, which hopefully won't happen if you leave the nori intact. Once you've strained off the marinade, then I recommend you press the carrot between 2 pieces of doubled up kitchen roll. This helps to stop the sandwich from ending up a soggy mess. Here's a really good close-up to give you an idea of the final texture and show you how authentic it looks if you fold and roll it right, especially these extra thin serrated parts along the edges. The beetroot hasn't really changed that much in texture at all, but it has taken on all those lovely flavours. Now to put this all together, I'll be using these Sharp brand of crisp breads, which are a mix of rice and maize. They're certified gluten-free and low FODMAP. Now a FODMAP safe portion of these is usually a generous 4 crisp breads, but so that we can pair these with the bread from our cucumber sandwich, we'll be using just 2. This is half a portion and reduces both the FOS and GOS content by half. Allowing a full half portion for these has been quite overly cautious because you need to eat the entire box to hit a high FODMAP serving. So this is how they come in the packet, and in true gluten-free style they're a bit of an unexpected texture. They're much airier and puffier than I expected, and the best way to describe the texture is similar to a brand of crisps that we have here in the UK called Chip Sticks. Drop me a thumbs up in the comments if you know exactly what I mean. Now don't let the fact that these are so thin put you off. They're pretty sturdy, and despite most of them being cracked in the packet, they held up better than expected under a fairly wet filling. Still, to be on the safe side, I recommend topping them not too long before serving to keep them crisp and fresh. So to help get the carrot swirls to stick to the cracker, we'll start with a thin layer of the sour cream. Spread it lightly and evenly across the whole surface of the crisp bread. Again, for the purpose of making this look its best, I prefer to swirl and fold the carrot to give the effect of salmon locks, which is completely optional. Simply pile up your cracker if that's what you prefer. You can do the same with the beetroot, but to give it a bit of variety, I finely diced the beets into a fine sashimi dice and sprinkled this over the carrot. For some optional garnish, I used chives, capers and fresh parsley. Some fresh dill would be especially lovely here. There we have it, crispy, fresh, sweetly acidic, with a lovely bit of bite in the carrots and crunch from the crisp breads. Last but not least, we've got a creamy chickpea and grape salad, which we're going to serve in crispy lettuce cups. This recipe is much more of a salad style, and in my opinion it's the best one suited to eating like this. In order to be able to enjoy all 3 recipes together as part of an afternoon tea, using the lettuce rather than more bread allows us to do that. So for 2 servings we'll need 84 grams of chickpeas, which is 1 full portion of GOS. When paired with the half portion of crisp breads in the previous recipe, this keeps us within the recommended 1.5 portions of any FODMAP type per sitting. Next up is an optional ingredient of 20 grams of chopped walnuts. I chose FOS containing walnuts rather than something like almonds, which contain GOS. This is so they didn't stack with the chickpeas. Now when shared between 2 servings, this is less than half a portion of FOS, but if you malabsorb it, you may prefer to leave these out so that they don't stack with the bread and the crisp breads from the previous recipes. To give some colour, sweetness and tartness, we'll add red or black grapes. These can be eaten in any amount and added to taste, but for the sake of balance, I used a total of 40 grams. Now this might be an interesting addition, but yes, you can eat celery on the low FODMAP diet in very small amounts. A 20 gram portion, when shared between 2 servings, is FODMAP safe and contains 1 whole serving of mannitol. If you want to give it a miss, then you can swap it out for some finely diced radish. And just to give you a visual idea of what 2 servings or 20 grams looks like, about half a stalk, which is just enough for a sandwich filling. So to make this nice and creamy, we need 2 tablespoons of coconut yogurt, 1 tablespoon of vegan mayonnaise, a pinch of salt to taste, and a generous heaped tablespoon of chopped fresh parsley. Give that a good stir and set it aside. In a separate bowl, start to lightly crush the chickpeas. I use my pestle, but a fork or potato masher works just as well. You don't want it turning to mush, you're looking to keep some whole and some crushed for texture. And at this point, you're going to start to see the skins separating away from the chickpeas. And I really recommend you take the time to pick those out because they don't look great, and quite frankly they can get a bit dry and stick in your throat. Or is that just me? There is a payoff for removing them, which is if you go ahead and weigh your chickpeas again, you'll realise that they've got a fair bit lighter, which means you can add more of the shelled chickpeas to make it back up to an 84 gram serving, and you're not wasting any of that precious allowance on those nasty papery skins. Yay! So now we've got those lovely skinless chickpeas, we just need to add the rest of the ingredients. Give it all a mix before drizzling in the thick creamy dressing. Once that's all mixed in, we can fill some crispy lettuce leaves, and my favourite for this type of recipe are romaine and baby gem, which are both strong enough to hold a decent amount of filling without going limp and horrible. Finally finish with a sprinkle of chives or spring onion greens and serve immediately. So there you have it. If you thought that being vegan, low FODMAP and or gluten-free meant that your sandwich eating afternoon tea days were over, then I hope this small selection of recipes has inspired you to get creative. Each of these recipes are designed to serve 2 people, and for the majority of low FODMAPers out there, they should be well tolerated together as a full-on tea party spread. Make sure you bulk your table out with lots of FODMAP-free fresh fruit and veggies such as strawberries, grapes, tomatoes, carrot and red pepper sticks, and don't forget that any of that leftover cheese spread or sour cream can be served on the side for dunking. They're all very low FODMAP and have already been calculated in with the recipes. All that's left is to put on your favourite summer outfit. I highly recommend an elasticated waistband, spread out your blanket and brew up your teapot. If it's not already linked down below when this video goes live, then the link to the detailed blog post will be coming soon. If you found this video helpful, then please make sure you let the YouTube algorithm gods know by giving a thumbs up, leaving a comment, saving it to a playlist or sharing it with a friend. Every single action you take helps our videos to get ranked and seen by more people just like you. Until next time, stay safe, enjoy the sunshine whenever it shows its face, and I'll speak to you soon.